Well, hey,
Yep.
everybody, we are live. Thank you for tuning into the vlog of many things. I am Don,
I'm Tom from Tabletop Taproom.
and we are here to talk about the legalities of publishing. AI art, is it good or bad? We're going to be talking about contracts, all kinds of good stuff tonight. Right, Tom?
uh, yeah, I guess. I've heard some things that kind of made my eyebrows go.
Yeah.
So, um,
Sorry. What did they do again? I want to hear that sound effect.
that's the good wife.
Sorry. Let's start off with a palate cleanser. Okay.
All right.
Let's talk about something light. You're a publisher, okay? You want to open up your own publishing business. And maybe if you are a publisher already, I think that you're going to get a lot out of this video because, well, number one, I sat down with my IP attorney because I'm filing several trademarks. And I found out a lot of really interesting stuff. Thaddeus, it's going really well. Thanks for coming on. Jason Messier. Sorry, butchering your name. Yes, you're probably going to say that by the time this video is over with. And Tabletop Taproom. Oh, that's you. Never mind. We'll get you off the screen.
Jason's a friend of mine and a fan of Star Frontiers, so
gotcha.
He could steal candy from babies, and I'd probably give him a pass on that.
Gotcha.
Just on Star Frontiers fandom.
Gotcha. Well, the whole thing with the show tonight, what we want to talk about is we want to talk about basically the legalities of publishing, because a lot of people do it right, but more people do it wrong than they do it right. And I know that that's kind of like a really forward thing to say here, but we're going to kind of get in the meat, potatoes, everything, and we'll kind of show everybody what we're talking about here. What do you want to start off with, Tom? Contracts, AI art? What are we going to go into first?
Well, I mean, if you want to open us with contracts, that might be good. I have some. I got some AI art in the mail, actually.
Okay.
So I could talk about that, or we could talk about contracts.
Let's just do contracts first. That way we have a chance more people coming in, probably start participating and such.
I think the AI art's going to get hot and heavy.
Probably.
Yeah.
Contracts might also, but never know. Now, for those of you who are a publisher, or for those of you who are going to get into publishing, whether it be book publishing and or game publishing, there's an old saying that you really need to kind of keep in mind. Tall fences make good neighbors. And that's the whole theory behind contracts. I know that we all know people, we got buddies. It's like, hey, you want to do a deal, you do this, I'll do this, and we'll just split it 50-50, that type of stuff. That's a disaster in the making, I think. I really do think it's, Tom's giggling, but hey, you know what, Tom, we're doing projects together, right?
Yeah.
Right? Is there a contract?
We have contracts.
That's right. Now, why? Because what a contract does is a contract spells out very neatly and very cleanly what all parties are to expect. That's the whole purpose of a contract. You're not being rude to somebody to say, hey, we're getting ready to do a business enterprise here. Let's get a written agreement, because, a contract spells out, more importantly than what happens when it goes good, it also spells out what happens if things go bad. We're both working on the same role-playing game. The game gets ready to go, and then let's say at the last minute I say, Tom, I don't want to be a part of it anymore, but I want my part of what was done. If we don't have a written agreement, how do we handle this? How do we talk about this? What happens at the end of it? Wabler says, as my 3-year-old nephew says, hooray, I am here for free to ask all the publisher-related questions. Oh, I'm sure you're going to get into this one, Rod, I really do. So the contract for a publisher is a critical thing. I have one with Tim Kask. I have one with you. I have one with Paulie Kidd that we're doing work with. So the contract is not a document that should insult anybody. And if you are a publisher and you are working with somebody else and you are operating without a contract, you're setting yourself up for either failure and or disaster, because there's so many what ifs that can happen in a contract.
Well, I was just thinking about the last one of the last verbal, I guess you could call it a contract that I made way back. When I was working in catering. One of the other drivers, a good friend of mine, and I had this verbal contract, because you buy a lottery ticket every week. Well, we had a verbal agreement that if I won, he won. If he wins, I win. So we both bought our tickets, and just whoever won, we were gonna. Now, I haven't, I haven't worked for that company in years and years and years. But what if I was to win $100 million on a lottery ticket? We did have that verbal contract.
Well, that's the whole thing, and you see it all the time in the news where like groups of employees will buy a ticket. They'll all throw $5 in and they buy $50 worth of tickets.
You're right. Everybody's name down on the ticket.
Yeah, but sometimes no, it doesn't happen. And that one person who bought that ticket is the winner. They sign the back of it, which is what? A contract. You're certifying that you are. And then they go ahead, and then what happens? There's a big messy lawsuit. But at the end of the day, is it a verbal contract? Is it a written contract? And there's another thing that happens is, and I'm going to pick on you and me, okay? We'll be the guinea pigs here. Okay. We have a contract together. We're doing work together. And let's say we get into a spat. I get mad at you. You get mad at me. We have a disagreement of terms. You say, it's my game. I say, no, hell with you. It's my game, Tom. What court has the jurisdiction?
Whichever.
It's in the contract.
It's in the contract.
That's right. So where is the court filed? Because the only other option is federal court. If you don't have a contract and you have individuals from two different states, if the contract is verbal, then it's the federal courts that have to handle it. Because at least in Michigan, my state will say, wait a minute here, you don't have a contract, you don't have a written agreement. How do we have jurisdiction? Because you have to show jurisdiction.
Right.
So
I wonder if, and I know the answer. I wonder if federal court is more expensive than local state courts. I wonder.
Let me call Eric real quick, okay?
No, I was gonna say. I wonder if Justin will let me know.
Oh my!
Oh, I think Justin will let you know in fine style.
God.
No, it is. I mean, think about it. And actually, the TSR Steno lawsuit is a real good thing to talk about here because it's so well documented publicly. And I think the owner of TSR, Lanasa, had what, Tom? How much in his lawsuit?
I forget the number now.
130,000.
130,000.
130 grand.
Prosecute a losing lawsuit.
Yeah. So, and that was just straight slander and libel. Can you imagine if, as an example, what happens if, here we go. Good comment here. 10 card. No verbal contracts between me, myself, and I. Exactly, Eric. That's exactly the point. Because the problem that you run into here, Eric just said 130K as of January. Yeah. Wow. So federal court is an expensive thing. So if you don't have a contract, then you got a judge. Let's say me and you worked a year together. Am I really going to take Tom to federal court and going to spend over 100 grand on a role-playing game? Is Tom going to take me to court? And you laugh about it. And you're right, because darn well the answer is no. Well, unless.
I think if it was back in the heyday of Gygax and Arneson, and there's suddenly the satanic panic happens and blows up D&D, and D&D becomes this thing, and there's hundreds of thousands of dollars involved, then maybe. But the typical D&D RPG producer today, are they, if they're making a living at it, good for them, but they're not going to invest 40 grand, 50 grand.
And that's a really good point to have, is that, if it's something where like D&D in its heyday, where literally millions of dollars are at stake, yes, you're going to find a lawyer who's going to represent you probably and say, I'll cover costs. Let me just go ahead and have, a percentage. But in all reality, no. So the nice thing about a contract is the contract basically protects you, it protects me, but it also protects the product.
Well, it's kind of like locks. Padlocks keep honest neighbors honest. I don't know if you've heard that expression, but it's locks keep honest people honest. A contract is going to keep good people from being at each other's throat with knives.
Yeah, and the thing is also is what's nice about a contract is when you actually take a look at a properly labeled contract, the contract not only should spell out. So let's talk a little bit about, for people, if you're a publisher, what should you have in your contract? I mean, in all reality, it should have the parties, and if you're dealing with a company, it should have not only the person's name who's in charge and who's going to be speaking for that company, but it should have the company name.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure the person you're dealing with their legal name, because a lot of people use pseudonyms online. They use, like Eric, 10 Cars Tavern, 10 Car, and sorry, I'm not picking on you, Eric. It was just a good point to make. But the thing is it protects you, but also you want to make sure jurisdiction in case there's a problem, and you need to spell out the IP, the intellectual property. Who is the owner of it? Is it one person? Is it mutual? And if it's mutual, what are the terms if one other, and this is very important, what happens if one party, for any reason, gets bored with the project? They die. What happens? Does Tom have, or does my wife have survivor rights on my agreements? Those are things people don't think about. And I mean, it's easy to leave the survivor rights out of it because, I can have a will that says my wife takes over my company and takes over all contracts for me. That's a legal thing that I can have with my wife through my LLC. But I also noticed there's so many publishing quote unquote companies, and they got a Facebook page, but they're not LLCs. They're not limited liability companies. They're not corporations. They don't even got a DBA with a bank account. I reached out to a publishing company last week. I wanted to buy some of their product because I thought it was really cool. And the guy said, "Here's my personal PayPal." And I'm not going to name shame the company, but they do a lot of stuff posting online on Drive Through RPG and all that stuff. And it's a company name. They got a Facebook page. They got all that. And I said, "Well, I'd rather just go ahead, pay with my LLC and pay your company." And he goes, "No, that's my PayPal, what it goes to."
Oops.
I said, "You an LLC?" He says, "No." And I go, "How come you have LLC on your name, though?" He goes, "It looks good."
Oh my goodness.
That's, by the way, just to let you know, that's fraud. You can't claim LLC unless you are one.
Well, and back to the point about widows having surviving rights to your IP and intellectual property. Nobody's ever heard of a widow causing a problem over intellectual property.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. Yeah. I will quote a good friend who I work with. He calls her the widow.
That's it.
That's all he says. The widow, So yeah, I mean, but that's the whole thing. I mean, what happens if me and you in our game, suddenly our game is selling really well, and then I have a heart attack like Gary Gygax did and I die? And then my wife swoops in and says, "Oh, boom."
God forbid that happen.
Oh yeah, but I mean, these are the realities of the world that we live in, and these are the things that people don't think about when they start looking at contracts with friends and such. Because a contract is not an insult. A contract's just your way of going, "Hey, listen, I want to be protected, and I want you to be protected too."
Well, that you say a contract's not an insult, but I remember pulling up old memories here, contracts that were handed out by a certain bankrupt LLC. That were kind of sketchy contracts.
Sure.
When lawyers looked at them, they were like, "Run, don't walk for the door. Do not sign this. If you do, I'm no longer your lawyer. I don't want,
Well, that's a good point. It doesn't mean that the contract that the person's presenting you is a good one. You know, contracts can be very forward loaded. What that means in legal terms is basically it protects the person presenting the contract. And that's basically, and I'll say the name because I was a recipient of one of those IP contracts, and that was under TSR, and it was extremely heavily loaded. And and that's why people like myself and people like Darlene had their attorneys read them, because in mine it had another company's name in it. So I mean, it it had in a couple different places another company's name listed in there they didn't take out, and then I'm in very plain language it said that everything I create, everything I make, everything I do is the property of the owner. And I was like,
So you're telling me that they neglected to take another company's name out of the contract. They
Mhm.
changed. They put TSR LLC in there a few times, but mistakenly left another company's name in
another
there.
company's name that they submitted the contract to before they submitted it to me.
Oh, oh. So you knew who they were submitting contracts.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Because there was two different names in there. So I know the two other companies, at least before me, they submitted it to.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like so incompetent on their part.
You ever see that? You ever see that logo of the trash dumpster on fire going down the river in the street?
I photoshopped one of those for
Mhm.
a video tile.
No, I mean that's the whole point, though. I mean, it's sort of like when I had my publishing company between '08 and 2013. Is a publishing contract and book publishing and game publishing are the exact same thing. Um, ex- yep, 100% certified, right, Eric? I agree, Tenkar. And the thing is the another thing that basically what the contract should have, it should name the parties, it should spell out what is being done in very clear language. It should have the terms of basically division. Is it going to be a straight percentage 50-50? Is it going to be 60-40? Is it going to be 30-70? And along with that, it should sit there. Hold on a minute. Waybuilder says Jameson Stone is a perfect example of how not to do a contract and try to enforce it with a client.
Yeah, that
Yes.
was a hot mess.
Yeah. Because this is what a lot of people do with contracts. They just write it up themselves, or they go on, on the internet instead of sitting down with an attorney. My attorney charges me to do a contract write up. And once I have it, it's done. I can actually pull out a name and insert name and product. Is $250 she charged me to write up the contract.
Huh. It's not expensive.
No, not at all.
No.
And I said it last week, and you got kind of raised eyebrows when I said, I know attorneys cost money, and people are like, I don't want to do that. No, you do want to do that, because I'll tell you what, a good lawyer, like I said last week, will make you far more money than they'll charge you because they protect you.
All right, I guess I can buy that. What's actually funny, and maybe this should be our segue, is you can actually have AI write you a contract.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because I actually had AI write a contract for an RPG.
Yeah,
game.
and
For characters in game.
yes, and the thing is, you can't plagiarize contracts because it's just legalese, it's legal terms and everything. But on the same token, verbiage can be very, very important. One word in a contract that's a little bit off can really just turn it.
Well, I actually had to have somebody completely rewrite it. So even though I had AI do it, it had to be completely rewritten. I might as well have not even used AI in the end, because it had to be completely rewritten, because it just wasn't right. It just wasn't good. So,
well, I mean, and that's a good segue into the next part of this is, AI. And, we all know about AI, and we know that there's two sides of the fence. We have, on one side, we have individuals that demonize it and say it's bad, it steals artists' work. And on the other side, we have people saying, hey, look, there's nothing wrong with it. AI is fine. It's not directly copying anybody. And like we were talking about before the show, reason why we wanted to bring AI on here is because I just happened to meet with my IP attorney because I'm
Mhm.
again filing trademarks, and he really filled me in on some really interesting stuff about AI that is extremely interesting. Eric Tenkar says, I used AI to write a contract to cover my parents for potential liability, had an attorney friend look it over, said it was fine and valid. See, that's crazy, isn't that?
Mm.
I mean, AI nailed it for once,
Well, that's the old proverb about 100 monkeys randomly typing on typewriters, hitting random keys would eventually, if there was 100 of them, eventually you would get to be or not to be.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, AI, and we know right now there is a large class action lawsuit against Midjourney.
There's
And
multiple class action lawsuits out there, actually. Yeah.
yes,
Getting
and Midjourney was especially outed by an insider on Discord who
Mm.
was, I guess, a data entry specialist or something, and he outed the list of artists that he was ordered to enter and access their imagery and such and put it into this algorithm, if you will. So he's the
Yeah,
main point.
that would explain why you could name a specific artist and say, do me a picture in this artist's style. And
Well,
wow, it really comes out looking like something that
well,
artist did in the past.
well, my argument is this: for anyone who says that's not true, go into Midjourney and type in this simple phrase: "Draw me a red dragon in the style of Jeff Easley." That's all you got to type. Now, it's going to draw you a dragon that looks real similar to Easley's work. And my question to you is, how in the hell did that computer program know what Easley's work looks like?
Well,
It has to get it someplace.
they claim that that's the same as an artist going to a museum and sitting there. You know, they take out one of these
Mm-hmm.
clipboard and they put their paper in it and they sit there with their pencils and they just start sketching the art that
Yep.
they see on the wall.
Okay.
Sketch a copy of it.
Sure.
They make that claim, and I would contend that even though you can make that claim, that it's actually my interpretation. It's my skill, my experience, my eye. There's a lot goes into it because when I do that, I've got 45 minutes to draw. And the reason why I got 45 minutes to draw is because my attention goes, and I reach a point where I'm done. I'm done with the picture. It better be done because I'm done with it and I'm moving on. My attention span says, oh, squirrel, I got to go and do something else. And, so they make that claim, but as an artist who's done that, I don't agree with it.
Well, a good argument that I have for that is this: is that okay? If that's going to be the argument that someone's going to use, how about I do this? How about I go to whoever you are that are arguing that way? How about I, as a publisher, go to your personal Facebook page? I grab photos of your wife and your child. I'll pull them into Photoshop. I'll shade them green. I'll put goblin clothing on them, put ears on them, distort them using Liquify, and I'll put them on the cover of my role-playing game. I'm not using your child or your wife's image. They're my inspiration. I'm using Photoshop to manipulate it and redo it and everything. I guarantee you, those people would be screaming, demanding I not use their private imagery. Because you see it all the time on Facebook. You get friends that post the stuff saying, I, Don Samora, hereby do not allow Facebook to utilize my personal imagery, which is a total joke. But because they saw their friend do it and it sounds good and it looks good, they post it. By the way, that's total worthless garbage. But Scott Mulder says, woohoo, let me chat. Yes, it did. Welcome, Scott. Bida says,
by the way,
yep, AI has a house style depending on which service you're using. You won't have a complete duplicate unless you work very hard to get a complete duplicate, at which point you are trying to plagiarize. Yes, but the whole point is, these AI engines have already been found to be pulling, though, from intellectually
Oh,
intellectual property of others.
well,
And
they've scraped the internet, and the AI engines were created by nonprofits because the rules for nonprofits are different. But those nonprofits are totally funded by for-profits. And then the nonprofits turn around and go, we're just putting this out there for anyone to use. So, the for-profits who fund the nonprofits then get their return on investment because it's made free for them to use. It's they're playing a game with it, and they're being shifty.
yes, and the thing is well, it's sort of like what my attorney said. You know, he said basically that right now there's a series of class action lawsuits pending against several AI companies. And he made a really good point. He said, I said, well, I asked him, would it really hurt? What is the legality of it? Would it really hurt to use AI? And he goes, not right now, it wouldn't. But if you touch that stuff, you're an idiot. That was his quote. And I asked him why. And he said, because these AI companies are going to lose these class action lawsuits. They've been outed. The proof is so concrete. And he goes, you know what? These are going to be record breaking judgments. And he goes, they're going to make the judgments against the cigarette companies in the late 90s and early 2000s look like kids play. I mean, they're going to be $1 billion plus judgments. And data scraping, FIS says data scraping is often legal, but there's a gray area there. Yes, because the gray area is that they've been outed pulling from IP protected. There's a list. 3 of the artists that I'm friends with are on that list. And Kim Winston, thank you for tuning in. Kim says the rules are different, but they don't prevent copyright claims, etc. Well, in the United States, once these lawsuits go through the federal courts in the U.S., Kim, according to my attorney, they will. And what my attorney said what's going to end up happening is then the next step is going to be the law firms are going to get involved, and they're going to go after smaller publishers. And how they're going to do it is, like he told me, he says they're going to scrape their social media. Like they're going to go to Wizard Tower Games. I'll pick on myself. And they're going to say, okay, let's look for Wizard Tower Games. Did they ever talk about AI? What did they say? And for these publishers that are out there going, well, I've seen these terms. Well, I don't care. It's free, they say. Or they say, what's the big deal? Those are the publishers that they're not going to send C&Ds to. They're going to file federal cases against. And I know, Kim, your country has very specific rules about it, but the United States, trust me, well, we know this from the dumpster fire that happened in Lake Geneva in North Carolina. You can sue anybody for anything in the United States, sadly. Yeah. Thyatis says, after all, Google and other large tech companies do it for a living. But there's a difference. The difference, Thyatis, is that what Google's doing something that, although, yes, they're scraping, what they do, however, is like you ever look in a Google search and it says under the DMCA or under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, certain relevant entries have been omitted, because they do that, but you have to click on it. So they're giving you a warning and you are bypassing their warning to you. So the impetus or the liability goes upon you. Kim says the main reason it's a nonprofit is so multiple corporations can invest in it, claim that on tax, and then also claim we're helping in the future. Bingo, absolutely. Wabler says you nailed it. I keep telling people, even if you ignore the morality, once AI is ruled to be a violation, everything you put out there that uses AI will need to be pulled. Stay away from it. And that was the other point my attorney mentioned to me, Tom. That was really interesting, because what he said is that what will happen is, along with lawsuits, they will be sending out C&Ds. And what will happen is all these people who are selling on DriveThru RPG that are using AI, even though our DriveThru doesn't allow it, which is a joke, because I can go on DriveThru RPG and point out 50 publishers using it and 1,000 products that have it. What they're going to do is they're going to sue DriveThru RPG. And then after they file a lawsuit against DriveThru RPG and these other similar companies, what they're then going to do is they're going to go ahead and then subpoena through discovery, what are the sales of publisher ABC? What is the sales of publisher XYZ? And then they're going to go after them for damages. And
so, all right, let me float a scenario here. I publish a fan magazine, Star Frontiersman Volume 2. It's a pay what you want. So that we have a tip cup. If you like what we're doing, it's free. Download it for free. We're happy for you to download it for free. If you like what we're doing, you want to support it, we do the pay what you want. So we have the tip cup, and that's just good.
You're still disseminating the information. You're still disseminating the imagery.
Yeah. So
it doesn't matter if it's free or not.
When AI first came out, and it was this new thing, and an artist, a writer submitted a piece of AI artwork. He goes, I don't know how you feel about this, but here's a piece of artwork that can go with my submission. And I thought, I don't know. I didn't know. And I went ahead and put it in. And so we did have, I think, maybe 2 or 3 pieces of AI art get in before I really started to research it. And then I said, no, I'm taking a stand. I'm supporting the artist.
There's a way around it.
All right.
The contract. Why don't you just be, well, that's exactly it. If someone is giving you something for free to use, just like if you go to Kickstarter, David Floor just ran into this. What does Kickstarter ask you? You have to certify whether or not you're using AI art. And BackerKit flat off has checkers that, although they suck, they will try to determine if you have AI. So a simple agreement saying, well, tell you what, here's a submission form. You have to click the box that you're certifying this is not AI. Now you're kind of stepping away from going, hey, they did not tell me this was AI. Like Scott Mulder says, he says, as an artist, I'm not against AI. It's a tool. It's not going away, but I agree that I prefer to see licensing agreements and legality being resolved. Absolutely. I think AI is not going away, but I think after all these legal attacks and all these legal court battles and everything, ethical AI is going to become more of a mainstream thing.
So here's the thing. As I dug into studying AI, here's the thing that swayed me was that AI art is Wild West. Anything goes. They scrape anything. They put anything in there. They don't care. Go ahead and sue us. We don't care.
Tom, the small publishing business, real quick, the smaller publishing businesses is a wild, wild west right now also.
Yeah. Well, they're also working on AI music. But with AI music, they are extremely careful to not put any training data into the AI that is copyrighted.
Why not?
Well, because there was this little thing called file sharing.
Damn right.
And lawsuits and the music industry is incredibly litigious. They are very litigious, and so they know this, and so they just know that. All right, look, they figure artists are starving. Starving artists will never sue us. They made a mistake because of Getty Images, because of So, yeah, the fact that they do it this way for AI music and they do it another way for AI art makes me say, wait a minute. If one is right and one is wrong, which is which? I think what they're doing with AI art is wrong. And so that was the impetus for me to say the fan magazine is not going to have any more AI art. The 2-3 pieces that got in, we're calling a mulligan on that. But maybe I've got to actually prepare new files to upload to drive through to get rid of the old AI art that's in there, just to protect.
Or what you do is you create a very simple, like as an example, you say, you want to send me some AI art, or you want to send me art for the magazine? I need you to make a statement in your email to me saying that I, and put your name, am certifying that this art is not AI.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have an email with the image content because you're not an AI expert.
Right. Well, I've got to go back and now deal with if after these court cases settle, and then you're going to have these law firms that do this, 1-800 call 2222222.
Call Saul.
Better call Saul.
Yeah.
These firms that have offices in 15 cities are going to begin coming after small publishers. Maybe I need to clean up, the 3 pieces that are out there in the fan magazine, even though the fan magazine is free.
Well, exactly. And Kim Winston, I want to get a few of these comments. We got to get caught up here a little bit.
Sure.
Kim says, Internet Archive is a nonprofit currently trapped in a massive IP war with big publishing. Absolutely. because again, I go back to my point of how about I go to these advocates for AI? How about if I go to their personal pages, grab pictures of their wife and kids, edit them in Photoshop, and put them in my product? Well, because I don't do that because A, it's ethically wrong, B, it's illegal, and C, it's just plain wrong. And that's the problem here. Again, so you want to be a publisher. Why are you going to become a publisher and do it half-ass? Or do something, and this just really disgusts me about some of the publishers out there. I'm sorry if you're a publisher, use AI. I'm just going to say this as a publisher. I think you're dead wrong, because I look at it when Wizard Tower Games first started out. I look at people like Dan Forsyth and Eric Lofgren, and I mean, these are guys that stepped up and said, "Hey, here's some of my artwork. You can use it." These are guys who stepped up and helped me. They, these I can name other artists that sat there and said, "Hey, tell you what I'm going to do. I'll make you a deal. I know you're just starting out. I'm going to give you a bunch of my art. Do me a favor. Just plug my work in your book." And as a publisher,
I would have killed for that as a fans magazine publisher.
But see, that's the thing. I remember that.
Yeah.
So if I go use AI art, I'm kind of spitting in their face. And the thing is Rod, Wabler went ahead and said and did something for me. Way back when AI was first coming out, I was active on Twitter. I made a post with this eyeball blob that an artist did for me. And he said, "Hey man, that's AI." And I was like, "No, it's not." And he's like, "That's AI. I know AI when I see it." And I started looking at the imagery. I'm like, easy. I know my guy. So I reached out to my guy. He's like, "No, that's not AI." So I said, "Okay, can you do me a favor so I want to post this so I can shut these people up. I want to throw it in their face. Give me just the Photoshop file with the layers, and I'm going to go post it and just shut them up because I want to throw egg on their face." Well, he admitted it was AI.
Uh-oh.
I've never used them again. And I took the image down. I was made to look like an ass because I'm defending my image and know it was AI. So,
Well, the other side of that is I famously uploaded a photograph of my wife's cat. I mean, Lovey just uses me for food and num-nums. She has no respect for me, no love for me, despite her name being Lovey. But I uploaded a photograph of her to an AI detector, and it went like 86%. That's AI, and I know what it was focusing on. It was focusing on the whiskers and the individual hairs because AI does that rather well, surprisingly. Mm-hmm. And so it was going, "Oh, well, yeah, that's got to be AI," and it's my cat. So there's no possibility a photograph of my cat could be AI, and yet the AI detector said 80 something percent AI, and I just was like, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. So even the AI detectors, but part of that problem is those AI detectors are, is sometimes they're hanging up on Photoshop brushes and tools, which are very similar to what AI uses. Yeah. So if I, as an artist, am using brushes and tools in Photoshop and I spit out an image and then somebody uploads it to an AI detector and the AI detector says 76% likely AI, well, that's not fair to me because I actually worked on that. And I probably worked on that with free to use images off of, Pexels or Pixabay. And I'm aware they're starting to put AI stuff on there, but putting a disclaimer.
Let's play a game here.
Sure.
First, Thayas says something. He says, "I work in tech AI specifically. I can tell you right now that the judgments against these AI companies will be narrow enough to allow the big companies to get away with what they're doing as well." And the thing is, I respect you, Thayas, that you work in AI, but my IP attorney, who's in the middle of a lot of this stuff, he thinks they're going to get huge monetary judgments against them. But Thayas goes on and says, "And if it does hit the big companies, we'll see mass lobbying efforts in Congress." Of course. Yeah. Because not that Congress is influenced by big business. Now, I want to share something here real quick.
Not that they like their palm greased.
Yeah. I'm going to show a screenshot here.
Sure.
And the screenshot here, I have a question for people, and that is this right here. This people is this image AI or is this image not AI?
Ooh, I know.
Tom knows the answer to this question.
Come on, you put your hand down.
I'm gonna leave it up for a few seconds,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about a few more We'll give people time to gel this a little bit. Scott Mulder says I have to have licenses purchased for my CGI assets, so I don't see why AI art generators couldn't do the same. Absolutely, why can't they pay for it? Thyatis also goes on and says Adobe is likely more safe because they're scraping their own stock art for their data sets to train on, though their stock art creators are not super happy. Yeah, Adobe stock has a lot of AI stuff in it. So if they're just going off of their own stock for their data sets, that would fall, Thyatis, wouldn't it? And you can answer this maybe, is more under the realm of responsible AI, if you will. And then Rod says, Thyatis, that's not true. Adobe's been busting using other artists' work without permission of their own stock art. Disagree in opinion. We welcome it. Let me go back to this real quick.
No, I say as in.
Yeah, Adobe. Oops. Jason Messier says, and we were worried or used to trove. Lars was right. Yeah. And then Thyatis goes on. I'm trying to catch up with comments. We have a lot of them. Thyatis says, that's news to me. Good to know. They'll bury the artist in court, though. Something to watch. And then Kim Winston says, the problem with legalities, etc., is OpenAI itself is now at the point of begging because its expert opinion is it can't do it legally. They just need too much data. And that's the thing. To do the imagery of quality, it needs a lot of data, a lot of imagery to pull from. Addressed to you, Tom, says at Tabletop Tapper, the difference with music is that they are very clear rules to go off on. Art is very different in many ways as the art community copies each other constantly, especially comics. He's got a really good point.
I'd like to address that.
Sure, go ahead.
I get that. I completely get that. I completely get that there are very clear rules concerning music. However, in the quest for what is right, is a music artist an artist? Yes. Is a traditional pen and paper artist or even somebody working with a Wacom tablet and Photoshop brushes an artist? Yes. If they're both artists, doing one-to-one being wrong and then doing the same thing to another is okay, I have a problem with that. And I don't want to participate in that. And, and then that kind of complicates my life a little bit because, I had some modules sent to me. I reviewed work by this guy, by his company before, and he was like, hey, I just want to send you some stuff and you don't have to do reviews on it. And I just sent back, I says, to be a YouTube content creator is to be a whore for content. So, wink, wink, I'll probably review your stuff. However, as I look through it, I'm looking through some of these titles and I was aware that some of these were in development and they've been in development a while. And so when I looked through them, I saw the credits. I saw who was credited for art because I was checking for that. And then the one that I had not seen in development before, that's kind of new to me, it's like fresh module, he did list the name of the artist doing art in the book, and then he listed Midjourney. And I went, oops, that's one I'm not going to review. And so do I continue to promote his company to fans of Star Frontiers?
Well,
what do I do?
Let me ask you a question. Again, we're talking about the responsibility of YouTube creators. So my question, again, we're going to maybe mean you're going to clash here for the first time, not the last, but it might be the first. And that is, but don't you have a responsibility to your viewers to review that product and mention the fact that he does use AI and he admits it and talk about the validity of using AI and the legality of it?
I think maybe I owe him as a friend that somebody I do like and consider, he mailed me 4 modules that he's printing.
Yes.
And with no like quid pro quo, you got to review my stuff and promote it. There's none of that. So this is somebody I do like. This is somebody I respect. He's done content for a Star Frontiers adjacent rule set. And so I think, maybe I owe him the courtesy of, hey, before I review this, would you like to be interviewed about it?
That's what I was just going to say. Why
Come
not
on,
bring him
Chuck.
on your show and say, I noticed that you have
So
Mid-Journey. Are you aware that there's a big front? And get his take on it as a small independent publisher and see what he says.
yeah, I think rather than just kind of like do the whole outing and like, I've given Justin Lanassa the chance to come on my show and defend
Yeah.
himself.
Absolutely.
He's declined to take that up. So I mean, rather than
Why?
just be like, well, I'm gonna trash this publisher.
No. Whoa. I'm
Yeah,
not saying trash the publisher. What I'm saying
yeah,
is
no,
this.
I don't want it to appear that way.
Yeah.
And I clearly don't want to trash this guy because I like him.
Yeah.
I hope to sit down at a table at a convention and play with him at some point in the
Mhm.
future.
But
So
it would be an interesting discussion to have, though,
yeah,
because
so
he is a proponent of AI.
everybody's going to figure out who he is if I do a review of one, because there's like clearly 2 or 3 modules here I can do reviews of that don't have AI,
Yeah.
and so I mean,
Well-
people will be like watching, going, "Oh, I think it was those guys."
Well, Scott Mulder says, as the AI gets better with each month, it's almost as good as and accurate as my CGI 3D artwork. Soon you won't be able to tell the difference at all. So in that way, it hurts me. And that's the thing. It's like some of the artwork that I do. And by the way, the image that you guys just saw on the screen, it was not AI. But if you enter that image into an AI generator, it'll say plus 90% that it's AI.
Yeah.
I've ran it through 3 different AI generators. All of them are in the low to mid 90s. And it's
And-
not AI.
What they're detecting, I think, is the Photoshop tools that you use, because you're very good at Photoshop.
Mhm. And that's the thing about, as a Photoshop artist, we all use our Wacom tablet. Most of us do, at least.
Yeah.
We all go ahead and we use, and yeah, you do get inspiration from other people. I cannot say that my pencil drawings are not influenced by the fantasy art I've seen. But I think with the argument of the music industry versus AI, you hear it all the time that, like, a well-known rock band or a well-known singer sues another one because they use the front riff from their song. And you listen to it, and it's just like the first da 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 da. It's less than 3 seconds worth of stuff, but they used it. And that's kind of like the same thing from AI. AI is not sitting there. Okay, as an example, you mentioned you doing your drawings. Yeah, you're thinking, look, we'll pick on Jeff Easley. Yeah, you're drawing a dragon. You're thinking of Jeff Easley. Yes, you might be able to, influence like the spiked ears, the horns and the dragon and such. But the problem with AI is directly pulling the imagery itself and manipulating that imagery. It'd be like me taking the dragon from the red box set of D&D, pulling it into Photoshop, changing the color of it, and going, well, it's not a red dragon, it's green dragon. No, that's Jeff Easley's work.
Yeah. Well, there's also the problem of, despite everything that goes on with AI, occasionally it does things that are very obviously a copy of an original. They call those, I believe they call those overfixes, where it's overfixed the
Yes.
image. And it's like, oh yeah, dude, if I was a real life artist putting this out as my own work, I would be sued. C&D, sued, in court, done. But it's AI, and oh my God, it's so innocent because it has no morals. It's a machine.
10 Cars Tavern says you don't own the rights to the photos you appear in. The rights are owned by the photographer by default. Thank you, Ken Whitman, for encouraging me to learn the law. It's just like, well, it's true, because like you see on YouTube all the time, these auditors, and they'll be sitting out in front of a restaurant videotaping patrons coming in and out. Some guy or a girl gets pissed off because they're getting their photo taken. They call the police. What happens? The cop says, hey, you're on a public street.
Yeah.
And it's just like in Michigan, as an example. Michigan, we had a very famous case in Michigan. A driver was pulled over, and they were pulled over because their license was suspended. Now, how did that police officer determine the license was suspended? The police officer ran their plate. And in Michigan, when they run your plate, they can tell who your insurance company is now. They can see if you got current insurance, who the registered owner of the vehicle is, warrants, whatever.
Big
And
brother
he fought,
watching you.
yeah, well, he fought it in court because he said, wait a minute here. I wasn't breaking any law. I was just driving down the road. The officer admitted it. The officer ran the plate. And the U.S. he lost, or excuse me, he won in circuit court, got the case dismissed. Well, the prosecutor appealed it to the Michigan Court of Appeals, and the Michigan Court of Appeals said, no, you don't have a standard expectation of privacy in the public. Your license plate is there for everybody to see. Law enforcement has the right to run your plate. You were a white male. The plate was ran. The owner is a white male. You had no expectation of privacy, and they had the legal right to run your plate. And Eric, being a law enforcement officer, I don't know if they did that back when you were a police officer, but that's what they do in Michigan. So they kicked it back, said, no, it's not being dismissed. And the guy ended up getting jail time out of it. So, it's the same thing with the photographic thing, borrowing people's photos. That's what I was talking about earlier. It's number one, it's morally wrong for me to take a photo of your child or your wife and use it, but it's also legally wrong. And I think that's, for me as a publisher, that's the edge of AI that I don't like, because damn it, people, Dan Forsyth, Eric Lofgren, Dean Spencer, these artists were flipping good to me. And I'm going to use AI art and just I'm going to give them the one finger salute and say, thank you very much for your time, but I can get it for free now.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. I mean,
There's another issue here. It's as a magazine editor, I've had artists who are professional who do get, I've asked them, what would a commission cost me? Jerry Boucher, who's English, actually doesn't live in England right now, but he has kept us in artwork. Aylin Taylor's a new artist has come along. Boy, I really like this guy. He's got a unique vision. Aaron O'Brien, I think he's more semi-pro. He does take commissions. He's a little lower in his, and I'm like, sure, I liking his price a little bit better when I go to one of these guys and I go, how much for a commission? And it's like, whoa, it's a little pricey. So I've backed off on a few of those commissions, but these guys are professional artists and they've kept us in artwork. And, it's kind of a slap in the face if I just start using AI. These guys have, and we're talking 36 issues of the Frontier Explorer, 25 issues of the original Star Frontiersman magazine, and we're now on 5 or 6 issues of the volume 2 of the Star Frontiersman. We're talking a lot of time and relationship with artists, and even way back in the early Star Frontiersman, Frontier Explorer, there was a professional artist, and this woman, I met her through DeviantArt. She has some of her art is on the cover of Star Trek novels. Mm-hmm. That's not small potatoes. She donated a whole picture to us that we used as a cover image for one of the early Frontier Explorers. It would be a slap in the face to her as well. And all these artists have been kind to us as a fan magazine and let us use their art for free. And how can I just be like, all right, I don't need you now. I got AI.
And there's the next step here I talk about in publishing. Let me get through some of these comments, and I want to touch something you just brought up.
All right.
Kim Winston says Adobe is absolutely not safe. It's full of freelance stuff that's loaded with AI. Agreed. Scott Mulder, it looks to be AI at my screen's resolution, but it could be really well done digital rendering. Kim Winston also says Adobe stock art program started high quality and they just opened the floodgates. Tom is off here for a moment, so I'm going to go with this. Titus says, I'm going to say the image is AI based on the thatching on the roof in the back and the awkward lines in road light, but I'm only 54% confident. No, it's not AI. Tom Titus says it's a fair opinion. Titus also says it's a good thing I hedge my confidence level. Kim Winston, you don't own the rights to the photos. You own the rights to your likeness, but that's a different set of rules and tests. Yes, even in the United States. Scott Mulder says, and the color is always so good in digital renders, it makes it difficult to differentiate anymore. Other than hands and some faces, it really gets more difficult to tell. 100% agreed. Eric Tenkar says, we could in the late 90s, but it would take a few minutes to get a return. We generally ran plates when we stopped a car for violation, not randomly. Yeah, they do it now, Eric. At least in Michigan, I know every state's a little bit different, but in Michigan, they run your plate, man. They even know who your finance company is. And Rod says, so we're almost an hour in. Summary: publishers don't use AI art. Most of us other publishers won't take you seriously if you do anyways, but there are reasons other than that not to. Okay, now into what Tom was just talking about. I really believe in relationships in publishing. And for those individuals who are getting into publishing who smirk at that, I'll talk to you in 2 years if you're still in business, because it's all about relationships. It's people get to know your integrity. Can they trust you? And when you go to start working with people, that reputation that you have sitting behind you matters, because well-known individuals in the publishing industry, well-known names, are going to vet you. And they're not going to want to work with you if you have questionable integrity. And I want to go right back to this comment. Summary: publishers don't use AR. Most of us publishers won't take you seriously if you do, but there are reasons other than that to not to. And again, you know, like, okay, me and Rod, we joke about this is, you know, and Rod, you were the one who called me out on the AI for the Globe. You were right. And I think Rod got burned on AI one time, you know? So you get burned. You're publicly outed. What do? Do you cuss out the people criticizing you and double down like a certain publisher in North Carolina that I won't mention? Or do you stand up with a little bit of integrity behind you and say, you know what? Hey folks, I was wrong for what I did. I reached out, I did some research. This was AI. Sorry for using it. It doesn't hurt to say those words.
Doesn't hurt to fall on your sword.
Absolutely.
Doesn't hurt. I want to make a prediction because we're at the hour mark, and I want to make a prediction. You know, that I think you're going to, over the past 15 years, you've seen more and more computer, CGI. You know, Scott Mulder does a lot of CGI, but he's done some classic, drawing sketches for us in the past. Which he totally surprised me because I was so used to getting CGI from him. And then he did a sketch and I was like, oh man, I love this. I mean, it was just, he did a sketch of a mine sweeping starship for us. And I was like, oh God, I love this image. But I predict, you've seen this rise of the Wacom tablet and more, because it really did, when you got good at it, you could do good images. And, this is more my style. Geez, can't see it.
I think put it closer to the camera at an angle.
Yeah, I'm getting a little too much light from some of the sources here. So let me see if we can't. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, I mean, I started drawing only out of necessity to have illustrations to put in the magazines. And, so it's something I've had to study and do. And I just love graphite. I love charcoal. This is obviously a graphite image I've gone over with a micron marker. And I predict that you've seen this whole shift towards stuff done in a Wacom tablet, done in Photoshop, and, much more photoreal looking artwork over the past 15 years. I think you're going to start seeing some of this much more traditional sketching being done, and that people choosing to do it because they're just tired of the, dude, you did it. That's AI. You didn't do that. And, because you've had that accusation against you where you've clearly, look, I have the receipts. I have all my layers. I did this in Photoshop. It's my work. And yet people still stupidly go, no. I know what I'm talking about. I use AI filters. I use multiple, like people are like going, yeah, I want to take this picture and I'm going to run it through 7 AI filters. That's bullcrap. I don't believe anybody does it. They do it through one. They get out an answer they like, or if they don't like the answer, they go to another filter and get the answer they like, and then they run with that, and stupidly. But I think you're going to see a rise in more sketch art in the next 5 to 10 years, which will be good for somebody like me because that's what I like to do.
Well, I'll do another share screen here. And that's this right here. That right there is one of my pencils. That's my drawing. In fact, that is in a frame over my wife's sewing area.
Oh, nice.
And it's a dungeon door. And I posted that online and got accused of it being AI. And I know AI can do pencils, and I get it. You know what I mean? But the thing is this is a real good quote. Rod just said something I want to read out. He said, "Sure did. More than one time. Happens to the best of us. What do? You go back, you fix it, apologize, and move on. Know better, be better." Exactly. And that's called integrity.
Somebody who doubles down on their mistake, you can never respect them. You can never trust them. You know they're lying.
Yeah.
You want them, and yet they absolutely insist, stupidly, I think. And they have such ego they cannot fall on their sword and said, "Mea culpa, I did wrong."
Oh, I did? How many? I don't even know how many I got. I haven't looked at it in forever.
I don't even pay attention.
Yeah, it says I suppressed 1,000 subscribers. Good. Didn't know that.
Cool. Congratulations, son.
Thanks.
I got one last drip of bourbon here.
Oh, yeah. Diatis says AI has a very hard time doing line art, by the way. It can do inking, but it sucks at pencil and charcoal applications. Not enough data points to work with the training data is my guess. Yeah, probably. But this is the problem that you have. Because AI is such a sensitive thing, there's so many people out there that are willing just to throw the finger out. You did that. You did that. And again, your reputation can sometimes save you because sometimes you go, "Oh, I didn't know that. Shit, I made a mistake." But if you really legit, like Dyson Logos is a good example. Dyson Logos does gorgeous map work.
Absolutely.
He's been doing map work for what, 10, 15 years now, way before AI was even a breath.
Good part of 2 decades at least.
Yeah. And he's now suddenly being attacked by a bunch of morons online going, "That's AI." And what he's doing is, I think, a mistake. He's doubling down and arguing with him instead of just saying, "No, you can go to my website, look at the archive, and move on." But, fighting with trolls gets you nowhere. But I feel sorry for the guy because the guy is 100% right. He's not using AI. That's how good quality he is.
No,
but
his stuff was good 15 years ago.
Yeah.
He's
an awesome mapper.
And he did some Star Frontier stuff like 12, 13 years ago. And I was like, oh my God, but he did mostly D&D, so we never really used him much. But I was like, I love this guy's artwork. I've been friends with him. I believe we're friends on Facebook. We've chatted in the past in my capacity for the as like an unofficial editor of the original Star Frontiersman magazine. So, I mean, my relationship with him it's very light relationship, goes way back to 2009 at least.
Well, but T. Taylor says something interesting, and I agree with him. He says, "Today, do you use AI? In 10 years, why don't you use AI? I believe the days of original art is going to become nostalgic." I think you're right to a point, T. Taylor, but I think what's going to end up happening is I think that once all these lawsuits go through the courts, companies realize it's not worth the legal cost to go ahead and fight when they can do things differently. I think what'll happen is there'll be, the use of responsible AI. Because I remember back right around the time I founded my publishing company, Photoshop brushes were becoming very popular. And it was kind of the same argument. "Oh, you're cheating. It's not really what you drew. You're using a computer just to replicate grass or, rocks or whatever." And it was kind of the same little vibe in the Yahoo chat rooms at the time. That's how old I am. Yahoo chat rooms, but it's one of those things where I think that with all new technologies, there's a whole bunch of bumps in the road. You know, if you look back at the early 90s, with Napster and such, you know, bands like Metallica said, we'll never have our music digital. No way. Now, what is it? It's all digital. But they still had to go through the process, and there has to be a set of basic rules, a foundation, if you will, that that AI is built on. And like all these new technologies that are good, and I think AI has a place, but I think it's the wild, wild west right now.
Well, I
Thanks,
want to
Eric.
agree with that one comment about why aren't you using AI 10 years from now? Why aren't you using AI? I think this sort of thing is the
You see it
reason.
perfectly.
This is an oil painting by my father, and so it's textured. The surface is textured because he painted this. His hand touched this canvas, and this is why I like traditional artwork. There's something visceral about actually, for me, when I'm doing charcoal, because I'm doing a lot of smudging with my finger, dipping my finger in ground up charcoal and actually adding shading, and there's just something. I cannot explain it. I just enjoy it. It's visceral is the only word I can come up with, and artwork like that is still going to have a place. It's still going to sell. My father, for years going back, I remember all the way back to second grade in Alaska, he'd come home from swing shifts. He'd pour himself a glass of brandy, and he'd sit there for 45 minutes and he'd bang out an Alaskan landscape. And he was selling these left and right to help, because he was, 3-4 striper, wasn't making a lot of money. Alaska's a higher cost of living. And, milk just cost double what it cost down here at that time. This was the 70s. And, this is what he did. He just painted Alaskan landscapes, churned them out, 2-3 a week. And my second grade teacher, her and her husband bought, like, Dad estimated about 30 of them. He made money on this stuff, and he was good at it. And just throughout, from second grade, I'm now in my 50s. My whole life, Dad has been painting and selling these paintings. And, he never was selling them for $10,000. He was selling them for $300-500. He'd just churn them out quick. Sell them. He never had the name that commanded the money. I don't think this is going away. And honestly, I saw a painting, Saturday Evening Post author. The guy was Rockwell.
Norman Rockwell. Yeah.
I saw his exhibit at the Schoonover Museum in Massachusetts. And so I actually got my father. Last road trip I did with my dad before he passed away. Because, my dad's an artist, so I'm like, I'm more of a wannabe artist. So I got my dad. We went on this road trip. We went there, and we're looking at this, Norman Rockwell. He's an American legend. And we're going through the museum, and in this one painting, he actually included rock, grit, little bits of tiny pebbles in the paint. And so it added more texture, but it was because he painted, it was foreground, and it was where these Native Americans were standing looking on this dam. But that piece of foreground had that grit in the paint and those little pebbles, and then created shadow on those pebbles, beneath those pebbles. I just stood there. I was just transfixed. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy what this artist did. And he's so famous for what he did with portraits and the human face. But that one painting, I was like, oh my God, that is so unusual. That is crazy. But that is traditional artwork. That is, and that was oil paint, like what Dad would do. And I don't think that's going away. I think there's going to be a rise in the demand for artists who work in more traditional, illustration.
Yeah. And just like what Thea says, he says AI line art ends up having some really wonky lines and shading half the time. But also think about something here, Thyatis. 6 months ago, 99% of the AI images with human beings in them had 7 fingers, 9 fingers, 4 fingers, thumbs growing out the top of the hand. Now, it's gotten smarter. The algorithm's gotten better. Kim Winston says the people I feel bad for are artists who have styles similar to what AI produces, so are having their styles oversaturated in the market. Yeah.
However, Scott Mulder, who's been in the chat, does a lot of CGI.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? That CGI is based on a foundation of skill.
Yeah.
He has. And when he turned around and said, I'm just going to draw this starship for you instead of create it in CGI. And he sent me the image. I was like, oh my God, this is my most favorite piece of art you have done.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a foundation of skill that he has as an artist, as a
Yep.
human being. And so I got to give props to that. I mean, that's just, sure, he's traditionally done a lot of CGI for the magazine for years, but if he's forced to pick up a pencil and paper, the guy's going to kill it.
Yeah. And Kim Winston says one area AI is going to be unable to deal with is fan art, stuff like people's art of critical role characters, etc. So yeah, I mean, but the thing is I'm not saying that there's not a market for AI. I'm not against AI art. I'm against AI art that doesn't, for lack of a better term here, farm its sources in a more ethical, legal way. It's, as a publisher, even if there wasn't the legalities of it, I still don't think I would want to use it. I mean, I'm much more cautious now. So when I'm dealing with people I am new with me, I do sit there and kind of go, a few more questions are asked, a little bit more due diligence and such. But says at Wizard Tower Games, I know I actually missed the more abstract creations AI used to produce, because at least then you had to create something out of that rather than relying on the machine. And Thyatis, I think we're at Tom, hour 11 minutes now?
Yes.
Hour and 11. So I think that might be a good place to break this at. Thyatis, you got the last word in this week.
Thaddeus got the last word.
But the thing is
a good guy. I like Thaddeus a lot. He's a really good guy.
And I appreciate everybody who's been in chat. Please hit like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot on the channel that you're looking at it right now, because I know it's streaming right now to Wizard Tower Games and Tabletop Tap Room, as well as the vlog of many things. But Tom, what do you think? I mean, I really think that the legalities of publishing, we could do 3 or 4 shows on this subject, because it's so wide ranging. And I just see so many smaller companies, and I know they're sincere. I know they really want to publish games, but I think many of them, by not having contracts, by using strictly AI art, by not filing their businesses legally, by keeping it in their personal name, because pretty soon we're going to hear in the courts a term called, you're breaking the veil of protection of your LLC. Trust me, that term's going to be used a lot in federal court coming up. And when those things happen, you're exposing your home, your personal car, your retirement. You're exposing to some litigious individual who will sue you for any reason. Because like Eric Tenkar knows, there are individuals out there who would just sue you because they think they can. And, there are a lot of really bad actors out there also who have money and they think they can bully people with their attorneys.
Well, I predict, like I predicted, more traditional art, but people working in Photoshop and have their layers, and they can show you their layers. I think you're going to start seeing in RPG materials the cover image looks good, and some wahoo will go, oh, I think that's AI art. But then you're going to see at the back of the book, maybe they'll just put layers showing the work that, basically showing their receipts on, here's the rough sketch, I took it into Photoshop, and then I started cleaning it up, and here's the rough sketch I started with, I did the rough sketch. And so I think you're going to start seeing that as a defense against the AI, at least for now, until some of these court cases settle, and then the law is more settled and everybody knows what to expect. Because like we said, it's Wild West right now, and it's, pull out your guns and shoot.
All right. Well, at that, I think we're going to end this show. We're at hour and 15 minutes now. So
All right.
to everybody, Kim Winston, 10 Cars Tavern, T. Taylor, Thyatis, all of you, thank you very much for posting the questions.
Absolutely.
Our shows.
Congratulations, Dawn. Woohoo!
Before.
You got 1,000 subscribers. You have.
Oh, I hit 1,000. Yeah, good. I can monetize. But but seriously, I appreciate everybody, because without the comments, our videos would be 10 minutes long. I mean, you guys really spur us into talking about.
We like to talk. We could probably gas back for 40
We
minutes.
could probably pull it out. But so, thank you, everybody. I'm Don.
I'm Tom.
Thank you very much. Tuning into the vlog of many things, Tabletop Taproom Wizard Tower Games channel. Again, hit those like and subscribes. Hit the bell icon so you get notification when we go ahead and do more stuff. We're going to be back next week. We're going to be talking about who knows what we'll be posting on it. All right. So, Good night, everybody.